Whispers from Below, a horror podcast by Justin W. Geis. Scary stories, both real and fake. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 4 of Whispers from Below, a podcast by a madman for madmen. I'm your resident psychopath, Justin W. Geis, and today's topic of discussion is 10 facts about Beetlejuice. Before I get into the episode, I just want to say, happy Halloween. I know that this is going to be going up in November. So Halloween will have already passed, but at the time of recording, it is like coming up. It's really, really close. And it's like my high holy day, as I'm sure it is for a lot of people that listen to this kind of stuff. So happy Halloween. I hope you have a great time. Make sure you celebrate it safely, and all that good happy stuff, or celebrate it, I guess. And celebrate some Day of the Dead. This should go up at a time when you're still able to celebrate that. So go do some of that if that's part of your culture, and like have a great old time doing that. The other thing I want to say is that I am going to give a trigger warning right now. For those of you that don't know, Beetlejuice is a Tim Burton film, but it does talk about suicide in it. So if that is something that is going to trigger you or make you uncomfortable, you can still listen to a lot of the episode, but there is one of these fun little facts. I'll give a little disclaimer before it and say, this is the one that you should skip. And I'll let you know, just like skip ahead, like, 30 seconds or so to a minute, just to kind of like get yourself away from that. Because I don't want you guys to be triggered or have anything, happen where you don't feel comfortable. That's not the point of this podcast. But this should be pretty suitable for most people to listen to. I mean, it's a PG movie, which means that parental guidance is advised. Same for the episode. I feel like that's pretty much the same thing. Nothing in it is like super awful or terrible. I feel like everybody should be able to listen to this, and you should all watch the movie because Beetlejuice is one of my favorite movies. For those of you that don't like actually know me, I do have a tattoo of Zero from Nightmare Before Christmas, and right below him is the sandworm from Beetlejuice. So this movie is very important to me. It's one of my favorite movies. I think everybody should go see it. It's fantastic and amazing and wonderful. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. So like I said before, I'm going to be giving about 10 facts about Beetlejuice. I might throw some other stuff in there. Full disclaimer, research for this episode really is like barely anything, because I already know like all of these. I just like knowing trivia about some of my favorite movies, and I'm crazy and insane. So this is mostly just stuff that I knew. There is a couple things that I didn't know that was really interesting to find out, but for the most part, I just kind of wrote it all down from my brain, and I fact checked it, of course, and made sure that it was all correct. But I just really love Beetlejuice, and I'm just so excited about this episode. This is my first Burton episode too. I haven't done one like this before. So Tim Burton, obviously it's a Tim Burton film. It was released in 1988. It made $73.7 million on a $15 million budget. So that's a lot of money, like critical success. People really liked it. Audiences liked it. Critics liked it. Everybody really liked it. There were a lot of really famous people that were in this film, whether they're famous in Burton works or just famous in general. Michael Keaton's in it, Gina Davis is in it, Alec Baldwin, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara. I mean, these are all like pretty much household names at this point. Everybody knows who these people are. And they're all fantastic in it. Like if you want to see young Alec Baldwin playing someone that should be a dad but isn't a dad, this is the role for you. Winona Ryder as like a kid, it's wonderful. This is like a cult classic film. I'm sure many of you have heard of it, even if you haven't seen it, and you know some of the iconic imagery from it. You know what Beetlejuice looks like. You know about the sandworm. It's that giant thing with the little face as a tongue, kind of like Alien. And it's one of his most popular films, both in how much it made in the box office and also like in his legacy. So now that's just like a little bit of background information, and now we're going to get into the like actually fun facts. So fact number 10, these are in a specific order, by the way. I put them in an order of what I think is like the most interesting. Number 10, Catherine O'Hara met her future husband on set. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the film, Catherine O'Hara, who I think many of you would know now from like Schitt's Creek, she plays I believe Moira Rose. I haven't seen the show yet, but I think that's how most of you would know who that person is. She plays Delia Dietz, who is the stepmother to Lydia. I'm not going to talk too much about the plot because I want you all to go watch it if you haven't, but just keep these facts in mind when you see it. It's kind of fun. Bo Welch was the production designer for Burton on a couple of his films, including Beetlejuice, as well as Edward Scissorhands and Batman Returns. Him and Catherine O'Hara kind of like hit it off, and they were, talking and whatever. And he was like, I think he's really pretty. And towards the end of production, like filming and whatever, Tim said, just ask her out. And then this quote came from Welch in an interview later. He said, it didn't even occur to me that I was even supposed to talk to the actors. But since Tim told me to, I did. And then we dated and we're married and we are here today. So like, he really didn't think that like anything was going to come of it. And he didn't really know that he could go like talk to her. And he was like, she's pretty. And Tim was like, just go do it. And now they're like married and like very happy. So it's just like kind of funny to note like they literally have Tim Burton to thank for that marriage because they wouldn't have met each other / he probably wouldn't have asked her out had Tim Burton not like pushed him to do it. I don't know. Kind of a fun little tidbit. Fact number 9, Beetlejuice actually, this is a trigger warning. If you don't like suicide, this next note is going to be maybe a minute or two of me talking about suicide. So please, don't listen. Skip ahead. I'll see you at number 8. Number 9, Beetlejuice was supposed to have committed suicide. So in the movie, when they're all sitting around at the dinner table, Otho, who's like a guru person, very like gay, mentions that those who kill themselves become civil servants, quote unquote. And a prime example of what that means is look at Miss Argentina, who says, I wouldn't have had my little accident. She's all green, and she slit her wrists because she was unhappy, and now she's basically like a secretary in the afterlife. So you do work for the people if you kill yourself, is what Otho says. In some of the original ideas for the film, they used to have scenes that would show Beetlejuice at the start of the movie hanging himself out of heartbreak. And he wouldn't do it very well, so he kind of like fumbles, and it's not, he doesn't do it to kill himself right away. Like he's kind of tortured for it. This was eventually like cut from the film for, a bunch of time reasons, like the film was getting too long and they didn't like how it was playing out and whatever. And then after he hung himself, he became Juno's assistant, which also got cut from the film. But you can still see that character trait is definitely something that he still portrays. He has this like soft spot for some of the suicide victims. And you can see it because he gets so genuinely like shocked and horrified when Lydia talks about killing herself. He genuinely looks very upset about it. And he's not like, you can tell that it's not Beetlejuice being like an asshole. You can tell that it's like a genuine like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that. And so it kind of shows him as more of a well-rounded character rather than just like this bouncy, weird, ghosty dude, It just gives him a little bit more of depth, which I think is important. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back, those that left us earlier. We are now at number 8, which is that Tim Burton's girlfriend at the time, who is unknown, actually makes an appearance at the end of the movie. So at the end of the movie, there is a scene that was added. It's the waiting room scene. And it basically just shows like Beetlejuice trying to like cheat people out of their like wait time. Beetlejuice is fun to me because it shows like the bureaucracy of death, which I think is really like funny. And an interesting little like take on things. So he gets like a waiting room number, kind of like a deli counter number. And it's really, really far. And so he keeps trying to cheat people out of their cards that are closer to being seen first. And eventually he tries to feel up the legs of like a magician's assistant. And she is like a torso sitting on you can look up pictures of it. It's really funny. It's like her torso sitting on a couch and then her legs sitting next to her with like the legs crossed. She's a magician's assistant and she got like sawed in half. Ha ha ha. So in the afterlife, she's 2 different pieces. And he tries to like go up the legs and then she like smacks his hand and is like, what are you doing? Whatever. And the legs are actually Tim Burton's girlfriend of the time. The legs are unnamed in the credits, so nobody actually knows who he was dating at the time. It clearly wasn't anybody important, or we would have found out about it later. But he does admit that that was her, but he doesn't give her name or anything like that. So just a fun little mysterious tidbit, you know? And people have definitely said like, oh, it was this girl. Like people theorize, but nobody knows for sure except Burton and that woman. And I think, well, and everybody on set. But I just think that that's kind of nice of him to not like out her like that, you know? Um, on to number 7. So number 7 is that the movie almost had a very different name. It was almost called Scared Sheetless, which I think is really funny. When it was in production, the name Beetlejuice kind of really wasn't even in the mix at all. They were kind of just like focused on other names that were more about the ghost or the haunting aspect of it. And a name that was like kind of towards the top, like a really big contender, was House Ghosts. And that was kind of what they had like almost settled with. And then they were trying to figure out a name for the title, and Burton made a joke, and he was like, why don't you just call it Scared Sheetless? And boy, was he, because the production company like really, really liked that name and was like, wait, what if we use Scared Sheetless? Oh my God, it would be so funny. And we just show them in the sheets because there's this iconic scene with Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis in the bed sheets. And Lydia's like, you're not scary, you're in bed sheets. And he was like, oh, that could be like the movie posters and Scared Sheetless. It would be so funny. They didn't actually go with it because Burton was like, it was a joke. I don't want that. But they ended up deciding on Beetlejuice because he is such a titular part of the film, even though we'll get to that later. But he's not a huge part of the film per se, but he's a very big plot point in the film. And so he was a big enough personality and a big enough iconic part of it that they were like, if we name it this, we think that it'll translate well and it'll be easy for people to remember. It's a weird name. It's not played out. It's fun. So they went with Beetlejuice, and here we are. Number 6 is that Michael Keaton wasn't casted to play Beetlejuice until after they started filming. So Burton was super picky with casting when he was trying to figure out who he wanted to play Beetlejuice, being as he was like the title of the film and he was such a big character in the plot. They were like, we need somebody that's great to play this. So he took a really long time figuring it out, but they had to start filming. So there are a bunch of scenes that show all these weird cuts between Beetlejuice and the rest of the cast. And it's because the rest of the cast filmed it before he was even a part of the production. So a specific scene that you can watch, you can look up clips of it and you'll see it plain as day. There's a scene with this giant like stop motion snake with Michael Keaton's face on it that is chasing around the family and like almost killing them a bunch. And they filmed this scene without knowing what the head of the snake was going to look like. So they basically just told the actors, they were like, imagine a giant snake chasing you. And that was like what they got as their prompt. So that scene is really cut mostly because of stop motion, but also because they didn't have the face done yet on the snake. So they had to actually like go in and do all of that in post. So the actors are just reacting to something that they fully don't know what it is, which I just think is like really, really funny to me. I don't know. I think it's fun. I don't know about you, but I personally hate having to go to the grocery store. It takes up so much of my day when I could be starting a new hobby with that time, like soap carving or collecting the sick bags out of airplanes. With Instacart, it makes grocery shopping fast and easy, all while allowing me to stay in my underwear. Instacart allows you to order all of the things you usually get from your local stores, delivered to your door in as fast as 1 hour. Not only that, but it will also give you smart suggestions for new items based off of your preferences, as well as highlight deals to help you save some money. The shoppers handpick perfect produce and make sure that your eggs get to you safely. You can get free delivery on your first order over $35 by following the link in the show notes. This also lets Instacart know that we sent you, and it helps support Whispers from Below. So if you hate grocery shopping as much as I do, try Instacart today and enjoy getting your groceries the easy way. So now we're on to fact number 5. The visual effects budget was only $1 million of the $15 million budget. So for those of you that know the movie really well or haven't seen it yet, it's kind of done and this was intentional, as a sort of like B movie, like B-roll horror film movie. Kind of like for those of you like Rocky Horror, sort of that vibe of like it's supposed to be kind of campy and ridiculous. And playing into that was the fact that they only had a $1 million visual effects budget on a film that, I mean, you can try to argue with me about this, but it pretty much relies on special effects. Whether it's the stop motion or it's when Beetlejuice is flashing his weird faces at them, or even just like Lydia's artwork, or Delia's artwork that she has throughout the house, like that all has to be made and done and then be able to move and become something else. And there's just a lot of effects in it that I feel like were done kind of like quote unquote poorly. Like they were done in a way that wasn't pristine. And that plays so well with the idea of the film that it's become like such a big part of it, is this like B-roll film sort of style to it. And the only reason they did that was because they didn't have the budget to do any more of the visual effects. So I just thought that was fun to note too, because I feel like that is such a like iconic part of the film, is how it's done. And it's sort of imperfect. And that was because they didn't have money to do it on a pretty big budget for the time. I mean, that's like a pretty good budget, but like it wasn't enough for the visual effects. Just fun to note. On to fact number 4. So this film has a PG rating, but it is one of the only films to have a PG rating and have an F-bomb dropped in it. This came out right at a time where they were just starting to create and implement the PG-13 rating system. So people were like watching the movie and they were like, okay, what are we going to rate this? Like, we got to check it out and make sure that, we give it the right rating. And they just like, it's a simple mistake. They just like missed the fact that he says fuck in it. And so it's one of the only PG movies that has the word fuck in it. And I think now when it's re-released, it's done as PG-13, maybe like when they do like, like the Blu-ray or whatever, where they like remaster it or stuff like that. They might make it PG-13, but originally PG movie. So just like a fun little fact, like it's just a little mistake that they kind of kept in there. But the scene, for those of you that don't know, let me paint you a word picture. Basically, Barbara and Adam, played by Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, they leave Beetlejuice at like his grave. And he gets like really pissed off and upset, and he's really tiny. He's on like a model of the town. So they make themselves big again and they leave. And then you see a tree like on the top of a hill, like fall over on the model. And it shows him like pushing the tree over. And then he goes, "Nice fucking model." Wah, wah. And then the sound is like womp womp. And he like grabs his junk. So the scene is like a lot. Like it's not like something that you would like miss. Like it's funny, and like I quote it all the time. You can ask my boyfriend and my roommate. I always say "nice fucking model" to them. It is wonderful, and I do it a lot. But like it's just a fun little tidbit to know. It's a PG movie, but he says fuck in it. How fun. Now we're down to the top 3 facts, and then when we're done, I have a couple like little tidbit facts that are kind of fun to note. But these are the like 3 ones that I was like, these are so fascinating to me. So at number 3, we have the fact that Jack Skellington makes an appearance in the film. So timeline wise, this came out in 1988, I believe. Nightmare Before Christmas didn't even start production until the like mid 90s. So just, you have to hear it because it doesn't really make sense now why he's in it, but you'll see. So there's a scene in the movie where Beetlejuice is like turning into like a merry-go-round basically, and on the top of it is this little like skeleton head, and it looks exactly like Jack Skellington. Technically, it's not. It's just a little skull that Burton had been sketching since like 1982-ish, like in his like notebooks, and he had made this little like skeleton character, and he thought he was so cute, but he didn't really know how to implement him into his own film yet, and so he was just kind of throwing him in as like visual accoutrement, very like Skull Drage, sort of that vibe. Um, so he threw the little head on top of the merry-go-round, and then later they made Nightmare Before Christmas with this same style of head. So he threw in an Easter egg to a movie that he hadn't made yet, that he didn't know he was going to make yet. But as a Burton fan, you look at it and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, like timeline-wise. Why did he do this little homage to Jack Skellington? But it wasn't supposed to be. He didn't know that Jack was a character yet. I just think that that's so cool that his style is like so apparent that even before making an iconic character, he was able to drop an Easter egg of that character in a previous film. Like how many directors and stuff do you know that have been able to do that? Like, I don't know. That's fascinating to me, and it's super cool. And you can look up that little scene and you can see Jack's little head on the top of the merry-go-round. So, an Easter egg before he knew it was going to be one. In second place, we have the fact that Burton didn't like the Deo scene. So, if you don't know Beetlejuice, I'm sure that you know the scene where they're at dinner and they all get possessed and they start going, Deo, and it's Delia with like the song coming out of her mouth. And there's the little shrimp hands that come up, maybe they're prawns. They come up and they grab people's faces and they're all dancing and shaking their butts around the table. And it's like Lydia's way of trying to get people out of the house to show that it's haunted. And it's just like a really, really funny scene, right? And he didn't like it. He thought that it wasn't funny. He didn't think that audiences were going to get it. Which I wonder what that's like, because that is like one of, if not the most iconic part of that film, is that scene. It's been recreated by so many. I mean, the Hadid family did like a recreation of it. The Hadid family, like everybody knows that scene from the movie. And for him to be like, yeah, I just don't know. I don't think it's going to work. That boggles my mind. Like, I can't even imagine thinking that scene wouldn't work. It's hilarious and it's so well done. Like, it's just really, really, really funny to me that he didn't think it was funny. He didn't think it was going to work. And look at us now. And at the number one slot, drum roll, please. Beetlejuice is really not in the film, like, at all. So, he's the name of the film. He was on all the movie posters. They billed it that Michael Keaton was playing Beetlejuice, and it was this big deal that Michael Keaton was in this film. And he's only in about 17 and a half minutes of the film in total. He doesn't appear until 25 minutes into the movie, and Keaton was actually only on set for 2 weeks to finish all of his stuff. And what I'll say is that in that 2 weeks, they filmed stuff that they ended up cutting from the movie. So they named the movie after a character that is only in less than 20 minutes of the film. That is wild to me. Because you don't think about it, like when you say Beetlejuice, the first thing you think about is Michael Keaton in that role. Or you think about the Sandworm, who also isn't in the movie, like barely at all. You don't really think of, unless you're a big fan of it, you don't really think of like Lydia Dietz or, you know, Adam and Barbara or the sheet scene, or like those come later. But the first things you think of are like Michael Keaton and the Sandworm, which are both barely in the film at all. I just think that that's such a strange choice to like make that such a huge part of your marketing and your idea for the film, and then like basically cut him. And granted, he doesn't really need to be in a lot of it. He's more mentioned and talked about than he is like actually utilized in the film. So like I get it. It like makes sense to me. But oh my God, he's like not in the movie at all. And it's so funny because I didn't realize it until I read that fact, like maybe like a couple years ago. And then I rewatched it and was like, oh my God, you're right. He's not in this movie at all. He's not even in like the fucking movie. Like, I just think that that's crazy. The other people in that film do not get enough credit for what they did to make that film so iconic. Like, yes, Michael Keaton's performance is wonderful and whatever, but like, he's not like best known as Beetlejuice. Whereas like, I feel like some of these people, like this is some of their best work that they did. Like, I don't know. It's my personal belief. So that's pretty much the whole list, but I do have a couple like little tidbit facts that are kind of fun. So in case you've been like living under a rock, They made a musical of Beetlejuice. A friend of mine, shout out to Morgan Harrison, was in it right before it closed, unfortunately. But it's super fun. I saw it 3 times. It's a super fun show. You should take a listen to the soundtrack and get into it. It is a different plot from the movie, so keep that in mind if you're like a Stark, you know, a stalwart fan of the film. It doesn't really follow that plot as closely as you would think. It centers more around Lydia and her relationships with people, and the plot kind of changes a little bit to accommodate that. However, it's a pretty bomb album. It's pretty great. And it was a really fun show to see. So that's another way that you can ingest some Beetlejuice content if you would like to. And the other thing I just wanted to say real quick that I didn't put on the list because I feel like people know this, but it almost had a sequel. There was almost a sequel called like Beetlejuice Goes to Hawaii, but it ended up getting canceled because, well, first of all, before that, uh, Burton was on board to do it, and so was Michael Keaton. So that was really important, and everybody in Beetlejuice, after it was such a big success, was like, yeah, I'm down to come back and do it. But Winona Ryder was starting to get older and starting to get other projects and stuff, and she was like, well, maybe we do it, after Lydia has gotten older. And they were like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll do it like Lydia goes on vacation with like her older family, and like it's more of a relationship between that. Then Burton got tasked with doing Batman, and he decided to do Batman instead of doing the sequel to Beetlejuice. And he brought Michael Keaton along for the ride with that instead. So just like a fun little thing to know that there was almost a sequel with Beetlejuice in Hawaiian shirts, but we didn't get it. And then people have asked him about it in interviews even today, and everybody's on board to still do it except Burton. And he's like, I would need so much time to sit down and make it the way that I want it. And I don't think I have the time anymore to sit down and make it as perfect as I want. And I want to leave the original intact. I don't want to ruin it with some half-assed, sequel that I tried to make. Which I appreciate that. Being like, I'm not just going to do it because I know people will go see it. I want it to be good. Just fun little facts to note. That's pretty much all I have to talk about today. So, yeah, just going to plug a couple things. So, if you haven't already visited the website, you 100% should. It's super cool and super dope, and you can become a member on the website, which is really, really great. And you can message me directly on the website. There's a contact page. It's whispersfrombelow.com. You can go and check it out. You can download episodes. There's a merch page. We've got all sorts of cool stuff. There's like bomber jackets and t-shirts that say listeners from below, and I have a fanny pack that I really, really love. I use it pretty much every day, and I know that you people will be like, that's weird, you're wearing your own merch, and it's like, absolutely, I use that like all the time. There's embroidered hats, there's beanies, there's all sorts of stuff, sweatpants, pillowcases, stickers if you're a sticker person. Yeah, go check it out. It's like pretty cool. And then there's a contact page, and you can send me ideas for episodes. I absolutely love hearing from fans of the show and just hearing what you guys think I could do for future episodes. You can also let me know if there was a style of episode that I did or a genre that I did that you really responded to, that you liked, or if there was one that I did that you weren't as big of a fan of, being like, hey, so you did this episode that was sort of like structured this way and it was weird and I didn't enjoy listening to it. And it's like, cool. Constructive criticism, but don't be mean. If there was an episode that you really liked, like if you like when I talk about movies, or if you like when I do serial killer episodes or things like that, or anime, let me know, because it's good for me to know what content you guys really like consuming and what content is more just something that I was trying out. I mean, this podcast is still in its infancy. I haven't even been doing it for a year yet, So it's still a little baby podcast. So there's still room to grow and figure out what you guys need and want from it. Obviously I'll do episodes for me. Like this one is mostly for me because I love Tim Burton. But I'm sure that some of you guys will enjoy it, and I'm sure there's stuff I've done that you guys have enjoyed. So shoot me a message there. If you don't want to shoot me a message there, you can shoot me a direct message on Instagram. It's Whispers from Below. No spaces, no underscores, no capitals, no nothing. I always check the DMs, and I'm Gen Z, so I have my phone next to me pretty much all times of the day. That's the best place to keep updated. I try to post on there pretty frequently with pictures of myself or the merch or, what the episode is about that week. And I try to keep you guys updated there as well on whether or not there will be an episode this week, if there's anything not happening that week, if there's anything special happening. So that's the best place I would say to stay updated besides the website. So you can go there and follow me. It's like pretty cool. And you can send me a message. I always read all the messages people send me and I normally respond to them. So let a bitch know. Um, and if you're interested in my personal life at all or anything that I do, you can follow me at JUTIN_geese, like the animal. It's mostly just like my boyfriend, me in makeup, and my dog. This is pretty much all my Instagram is at this point. But if you're interested in any of that, or any of my political standings, you can go follow me there as well. That's pretty much it. Remember, Beetlejuice wasn't in the fucking film, like, at all. This is one of Tim Burton's best films, and you should all go watch it immediately after this episode. And we're still in a pandemic. Don't forget that.